Weird science
is the revolution.
Hello, all you weirdos. Jim here, and I'm going to be reviewing Rook Exodus #1, the last of the 3 Ghost Machine books that I'm reviewing this week. And this is the first round of these books. And you may be asking, Jim, are you doing Rook Exodus last because you're saving the best for last? Well, we'll have to see. You're going to have to be patient and wait for me to review it and give a score by the end. But I do think that this book looks the best because I'm a big Jason Fabok fan. But really, when you're talking about Gary Frank on Geiger, then you have Brian Hitch on Redcoat, and now Jason Fabok on Rook Exodus, there are no wrong answers. These all look great. I just personally love Jason Fabok and haven't seen a lot of Jason Fabok recently, so I was excited about that. But here are the full credits. Rook Exodus #1 is written by Jeff Johns, art by Jason Fabok, colors by Brad Anderson, letters by Rob Lee, and there is a info paragraph that I'll read real quick to get us up to speed, and then we'll talk about the issue itself. A struggling farmer from Earth was given a second chance on the planet Exodus, the terraformed world where every aspect of nature is controlled by humanity, including the winged scavengers who plagued his crops. Now called Rook, the farmer became one of the wardens, those who wear helmets capable of commanding an animal species. But when the world's engine failed, the power of the wardens fell into the wrong hands. Those who could afford to fled, forcing those left behind to choose between trying to escape this war-torn world before its destruction or fighting to save it. Now, there's a lot in that paragraph that isn't really dealt with fully in this first issue. That is a big picture deal. The idea of what we get in this issue, I can't see how anybody can fight to save anything. It's pretty much a clock-ticking type of circumstance where they better get the hell off this planet. But the idea of the wardens and their power falling into the wrong hands, we kind of get hints of that by the very end in the cliffhanger. Kind of a, heart-tugging deal. And in this whole play, you're really going to follow this character, Rook, who controls these birds, crows, it seems. And it's a cool idea. I think that I need to get more and more. I'm not saying that I didn't like what's going on. I'm actually saying that by the end, I'm intrigued by a lot of this and in a positive way want more info. It's not the idea of, oh man, I didn't get enough. And I'm more like, man, I want to see more and things that might even be, we're already going to go away from. I kind of want more of a developed thing of this whole entire planet and even what happened on Earth to lead to what's going on in this book. But it's pretty cool. You end up finding out right away that a Better World corporation is behind this planet. Very sci-fi type of deal. In the year 2152, they ended up buying Planet F, rebranded it as Exodus in 2153, colonized it in 2159. So you have this corporation that bought a planet. They end up getting a world engine, they terraform it, and then you're going to get the people of Earth going in what looked to be a very desperate situation on Earth. Earth seems to be overpopulated. It ends up, having a lot of problems, so people want to get to this new planet that's promised as a paradise. And if you read any sci-fi, you know that stuff never goes right. And by the year of 2173, this planet has already been, down the tubes. And in fact, that's even 2 years after the evacuation. You end up finding out the Earth engine failed in 2170. So really not a lot of time that people actually had on this planet. And then they evacuated a year later. So the Earth engine failed, evacuation a year later. And what we're dealing with in this issue is 2 years after that, 2173. And it's a cool thing because in a book where you're told that people left Earth, you start out with a rocket trying to leave Exodus and it ends up blowing up. And we're told that the people who had money, we were told in that info deal, people who had money, they left officially. They were on actual, company rockets. They got out of there. The people who are left now, they're building their own rockets. And I'll tell you, the person who built this rocket here that lifts off, they did a pretty good job. Like, I couldn't make like a box. And these people are making rockets. I mean, seriously, it's like Gilligan's Island, making all those things out of coconuts, right? This looks pretty impressive until it blows up and crashes. That don't look that impressive then. But one of the guys ends up surviving. He's impaled. He's going to die. And that's when we're introduced to Rook, where he ends up seeing this go down. And he is a scavenger and even says that I spent my days trying to keep crows from scavenging our crops. Now I'm the scavenger because he's building a rocket himself. So he goes to where this wreck is, not probably expecting to have somebody alive still. And this guy's impaled. He's going to die. There's no saving him. And you see through this, and it's more through actions and art, a lot in this issue. It's really good. And you end up where Jeff Johns and Jason Fallback work really well together. They've done things together, and they are a great team, where they do end up where Jeff Johns lets Jason Fallback work some things, and it all comes together because you get Rook, and before we even see his face, because he's got this helmet on, we see he's a pretty good guy. You would guess that any supply is in short supply, but he's going to give this dying man painkillers. Now, that seems like a wasted deal. Everybody has seen sci-fi or even like a Walking Dead, something like that. Like, you're not going to waste stuff on somebody that you know is already going to die, but this guy doesn't want a complete stranger to, die in pain. And you can almost get the idea that Rook is like, this is a kindred spirit. This guy, the thing he tried to do is what Rook's going to be trying to do. We'll find that out in a second. The idea that he's trying to get off this planet. This guy went for it. It didn't work. And you get through Rook's narration the idea that when people do try, one ship out of 50 gets through the clouds. He doesn't say that one ship out of 50 survives and gets back to Earth because he wouldn't know that anyway. But at least they get to space. The other 49, they crash like this. But that almost is a weird thing, like for a scavenger who's building his own ship, that's kind of a boon. The idea, okay, well, that crashed, I'll go grab this piece, I'll grab that. But it's a shame, and you can see that he does care that this guy is suffering. Now, before this guy ends up dying, he ends up handing him this, I don't know, a case it is. We find out later that it's a picture of this guy and his family. We don't know that yet, but he says, don't let them burn, and hands him this kind of portfolio case. Now, at that point, you could think, well, Rook would look through it. He puts it in his bag, but then suddenly gets attacked by the biggest kaiju bear you've ever seen. I mean, this thing is huge. They do explain the idea, quite like Texas. Everything grows big on the Exodus. Says that Exodus is such a big planet that everything grows proportionally like that. And this bear, it's humongous. It is a kaiju bear. And Rook is dead. You can see he can handle himself, but against this thing, he's really struggling. And he does end up then calling in the crows. And the funny thing is, it's not that if I said, and the crows come and take care of the bear, that would make no sense. What they end up doing is become a nuisance. So the bear gets distracted and then annoyed and leaves. So the bear walks away. That's how he gets saved with the birds. But through all of this, you're going to keep getting this narration of this planet is screwed. Everybody's hungry. The water is disappearing. All this, and even this technology that he has with this helmet that he controls these crows, it's kind of fritzing out. It goes offline. You got to reboot, and it all seems to tie into this world engine that has failed. And at one point, he even says that he doesn't think of these crows as friends. He thinks of them as just animals that when this helmet fritzes out, they will probably attack him and try to kill him because they're not friends and they're just animals. And everybody on this planet is starving and is thirsty, and all of the resources are disappearing quickly. Now, you see that in a clever way because he goes off and he actually goes what I would call, quote unquote, fishing. The fishing is that the lake streams, they're drying up. There's still water there, but the fish are in 2 inches of water. So you just go and grab them. Makes it easier there. But the problem is, by the end of this issue, so the place that he does go to that seems like his quote unquote fishing hole, it completely dries up. And it just points to the fact over and over and over that you can't stay on this planet very long, which is a cool thing because when he goes back to his home, which is in the city, which in a cool way says at one point, this city had 800,000 people. Now it has a population of 1. Splitsville here. He's the only one there. It is a wreck. I mean, the buildings are falling apart. You have just vehicles there in disrepair, destroyed. You have rocket ships that crashed into this whole play, but he's there building his own rocket. You see that's what he was doing. He was grabbing stuff to build his own rocket because he wants to get the hell out of there. So he's doing that. And in the meantime, he does say that these birds in my head, it's getting to me. He takes off his helmet, so we get to see him without a helmet for the first time. But he also says, I want to get, a little bit of the booze because he's eating dinner. It's like the worst dinner ever. I don't mind beans. Love beans on toast. That's, the British part of me. But the idea of eating baked beans and fish, I don't know that goes well together. That's not my type of meal, but he should have some whiskey to chase it down. That's empty. So he's got to go on a little run to go get, some alcohol and some supplies. Now, again, I mentioned it once. I can't say I keep mentioning, but the idea of Walking Dead. If you read Walking Dead, watch Walking Dead, one of the big things is the lack of supplies, but the danger of going to get them. There's no real danger here. He's just going through the city. What there is, though, is a really cool thing that's like one of those smart things that you don't have to have, but it shows that, Jason Fabok and Jeff Johns are thinking ahead and doing it. This is more visual than any sort of narration, but obviously it's part of the script. But he keeps going past places that end up having these red X's painted on the doors, on the windows, until he gets to a hotel, it looks like the Eagle, where there is no X, and he goes in. We find out through this that every time he goes and loots a place, he will put an X. So when he goes into this hotel, the Eagle, there are rooms he's gone into. They're X'd off. So if he goes into one of the rooms, clears it out, he puts an X on the door, and then it looks like when he's done completely and pretty much taken everything from an entire building, then he'll X the doors. That's very smart. Very smart, so you don't double back and waste your time. Because, you don't want to waste any sort of energy at a place like this where there's not much going on. But he does go and find some whiskey. So he gets some alcohol. That's a good thing, right? He does that. But also there's a movie. He does go to a movie, and he's sitting there watching this movie all alone, and you see this huge theater, and there he is all alone. I wouldn't mind that. I'm more of an introvert completely. I would not mind being in this whole city type deal, but he seems to be upset. And then to really push the deal, he opens up that portfolio, and there is a picture of the guy who died, his family. And then he kind of thinks, and it's that weird play where he thinks, don't let them burn, the guy said. Does that mean he doesn't want the photo to burn? Or does he mean that the family is still here on Exodus and they don't burn? Or is he talking about maybe his family got back or didn't even come here? They're on Earth. But he says, I'll never know. But it's one of those things, he's bored. Yeah, got nothing to do. But it does give you that idea of family and things like that, where he ends up thinking about some stuff later. But really, the idea of this is he's got to get the hell off this planet. And then we get kind of a bit of a collage of, not like a montage, actually. He's there, he's getting some fish, he's getting some scrap, he's working on his rocket, he's eating fish and beans, he's drinking alcohol, he's going to get supplies, he's going to get scavenge stuff. Like, this is a very tedious rinse and repeat life, where he's just scavenging, working on the rocket, eating, rinse, repeat. But he's doing this because he wants to get the hell off. And through all this, we're just dealing with him himself. We don't have anybody else. We find out in a little bit there is somebody else involved that he is doing this with. And that's a guy, Swine, who ends up having a helmet that controls what looks like warthogs, but pigs. And it seems like they had this plan where they're going to work together. They both scavenge. They both go and get these things, and they're both going to leave together. But I guess, unfortunately, you end up where Swine says he's not leaving. He's decided that he's not going to leave. He seems to be very loyal with his pigs, but at a point where Rook talks about and says it right before he meets up with Swine about the idea that the birds that he controls, they're not loyal to him. They're loyal to the helmet. And when that Fritz is out, they're going to attack. And he says the same thing. So Swine doesn't believe it. Like he says, the minute that you end up where your helmet goes offline, they're going to attack and eat you. And he's like, no. It reminds me of the idea. And when he's going, no, that wouldn't happen. It reminds me of that grizzly man. Like he thought these bears were nice to him and liked him. And then they ate them. That's what happens. I mean, they're not friends. They're animals. And even that, they're kind of out of control. And when they first show up with Swine, they grab Rook's fish and he's pissed off. That kind of gets played off a little too easily. Like, I'd be pissed. It is tough to find anything to eat or whatnot. These stupid warthogs came running in. He couldn't control them. They ended up eating it. But it works out. And again, what you'll notice in a subtle way is that Swine, he's named the word, like that's the step. He ended up naming them, so he thinks they're pets. He thinks that they're his. You don't name them. You don't hear Rook saying, oh, come here, Johnny. Like, he hasn't named the crows because they're just crows. And when he leaves, he's leaving them. But because of this connection, it seems as if Swine doesn't want to leave. But everything we've seen, I'm like, please, you got to get out of there. So they end up where they're discussing this. And Swine, I don't care what you say. I'm staying here. Kind of goes with that idea of fighting to save the planet. But this is just one guy with a bunch of warthogs. And unfortunately, spoiler alert, is not long for this world, it seems. But they end up, he has some alcohol. They're going to have a party that night. Hey, whatever we're going to do, let's just get sloshed tonight, have a party, have some fun. And they do. They kind of end up, getting drunk. But what are you going to do? I mean, this whole life seems just awful. But they drink, and that's where you end up having Rook. He goes back to work on his rocket, and he says, I'm a little drunk. Maybe shouldn't be working on the rocket drunk. And he ends up doing something that blows up something a bit. I mean, it's not destroyed, but it does knock him off the rocket, and it seems like he passes out. And while he is passed out, he goes and this is an opportunity for Jeff Johns to give us a little background of how he got to Exodus. And basically, he was a farmer with his dad. It looks like this corporation wanted to buy their farm. His dad was a guy who's like, nope, this farm stays in the family. Everybody's leaving Earth to go to this Exodus. He's not involved either. No, I don't want to do that. I'm the last holdout this farm. And it looks like possibly the corporation ended up setting the farm on fire and killing his dad to really give Rook here no other, choice. But what else is he going to do? And he gets, because they say, if you give us the farm, we'll give you front row seats to get to Exodus, which he takes. And yeah, it seemed like this Exodus was going to be a paradise. You end up having, and you do even see, it's a crazy deal, as you have Rook leaving Earth, you see the people left behind that they feel like they're the ones who are getting like the short end of the stick. Oh, please don't forget us. But the people on Exodus didn't last that long. They had to go back. So it's that crazy play. It is wacky in that whole idea of leaving Earth and having to leave Exodus, all that. But Rook ends up going, and they're all promised this whole paradise. Like, everything's great. You got clean air, all the stuff that you didn't have on Earth. This is great. And also explains that certain people got these helmets to be wardens to control these. I don't know what the benefit of having someone control crows, but there he is. And because they end up being able to look into, like, okay, we're going to put all your info in the computer here. Boop, boop, boop. Well, you were a farmer that had problems with crows, so we're going to have you work the crows. I mean, really the idea where Rook gets this assignment of being a warden of the guy, I don't think that's what he wanted. Like, he hated the crows on Earth, and now he's there. Yeah, he could control them, but still. And really, to me, got the short end of the stick. It's not that great. And even earlier at the one point, you have Jeff Johns in a clever way explain, like, if you thought that he could fly, like, this was more of like an Animal Man type power with this helmet, that you can get the powers of the crows. Not quite like that. He just kind of controls the crows. So far, what we've seen is them bitching and moaning because they're hungry and maybe distracting the big giant bear a little. But then you end up where Rook wakes up from his little dirt nap after getting drunkenly thrown off in an explosion of the rocket. And he's like, all right, well, it's back to rinse and repeat. I got to go out. I got to find Swine. Let's go and grab things. Because at this point, with everything that's going on, he's decided we ain't leaving in a month, a week. We're leaving today. Like, I don't know that after an explosion on the rocket, this makes sense, but he's leaving today, he says. So he goes out to find Swine to tell him. And as he goes, you end up seeing plumes of smoke going, and it's like, what's going on? And when he gets to where Swine is, his vehicle is destroyed, on fire, and then also ripped apart, but also a lot of his warthogs, his pigs are just ripped apart. They're destroyed. They are dead. And yeah, Rook, he doesn't understand what's going on. He doesn't know where Swine is. Oh my God, Swine, where are you? And then all of a sudden, Swine and the warthogs just come out of the woods, stampeding because they're being chased by those giant kaiju bears that we had before. And with that, you even have Swine trying to reestablish the connection with his helmet. It's fritzing out. He has to reboot it. All these things that were kind of set up before. But he ends up where he's yelling to, Pumbaa, you get out of here, run away. And it's kind of a funny, I don't think that, I guess he knows he's in big trouble. And he's like, this ain't my day, is it? Like, he's kind of joking a bit as you see that what they're running from are those giant bears again. Those giant bears just come out, and they're so big. Like, these warthogs are big, but the one bear just has a warthog in its mouth like it's a salmon, like you would see in a documentary, and just tossing these things around, slapping them. It is vicious. But what we find out then, because I thought at the beginning, oh, that bear, this is just nature. These bears, they're hungry, they're attacking, all that. We find out there's more to that, because then we end up seeing that there is a warden of these bears, and you even end up where all this going on, Swine, he gets just hit, and you have a voice off panel say, don't try to move, your spine's been broken. And then all of a sudden this hand comes and grabs Swine from the top and snaps his neck and pulls his helmet off. And you have Rook like, oh my God, Swine. And we see this warden of these bears who then says, and your skull's crushed. He's a funny guy. Like, hey, your spine's bad, but watch out. Your skull's crushed. And ends up where it looks like Swine definitely dead. And then it says next, the power of Earthsaw. So yeah, this is that idea that maybe some of these wardens aren't so good. Other people got a hold of this tech, and what would happen? Say somebody, a nice guy, he's the warden of the bears, but he got the hell out. Like, people left. You might just be walking through the woods and find, oh, what's this? Oh, I control squirrels now. I'm the squirrel warden. Like, that is probably a thing. So you have this guy, and he's holding on. He rips Swine's helmet off, so he has that as well. This might be a guy who maybe collects a bunch of them and things like that, but he's there. He's got a skull on, like as a cod piece kind of deal, but the big thing that I like was that he has a gun that's definitely right out of Gears of War. It ends up having the chainsaw on the end. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool, but also kind of taped together and stuff like that. It's crazy. I thought it was really good. And with that, I do think after multiple reviews, because I tried to record this a bunch of time, but also multiple readings, I think this is my favorite one. I think that this is my favorite book of the three so far, but it's close. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. I ended up giving Redcoat an 8.8, and I ended up giving Geiger an 8.5. And just as a quick explanation of those, I do have the links and whatnot, and you'll be able to go and listen to those or watch them if you haven't. But Geiger was really good, but mainly setting up things for people who might not have read Geiger before. A lot of the stuff did feel like, okay, I've been there, done that, I know that, but it still was good the way it was. So it's still an 8.5. And being the worst book of the three for me as an 8.5 is pretty good. I do like Redcoat, and I do think that Redcoat might be the wild card book. I don't see a ton of people saying they like Redcoat the most. But I do think after these couple issues fall, I think that might become my favorite. I'm more into that book, but the problem is this issue, I'm rating issue to issue, it felt more incomplete than this. This Rook Exodus felt like a complete deal with a cliffhanger of, oh my God, I got to see what's going to happen. Who's this guy? Oh my God, this intriguing world. Where Redcoat just felt like it was more of an intro to the character in the world and didn't get much at all to then fill in the blanks as we go on later. So that's kind of my, in a nutshell deal. But I like them all, but I do think that this one and the Jason Fabok art's my favorite, so that pushes it up as well. But a 9, an 8.8, and an 8.5, pretty good. Pretty damn good. And again, it gives people an alternative. I think that people should check these out. Get these number ones, especially this one. Rook, Exodus, and Redcoat are oversized for still only $3.99. You get some good bang for your buck. So let me know what you all think. Let me know in the comments, which book you like the most. Do you like all of these? Do you not like them? I mean, I'm not telling you have to like all these. Let me know what you think. I did think that this one was going to be a longer review, so I apologize for that. But with all that, please let me know what you think in the comments, and I will talk to you all later.
Weird science is the revolution.